Hi everyone, this is Sean. So today we're going to walk through Hermes agent harness and its loop engineering system. This is one of the most popular harness agent system right now, and it's an open source project. If you check their GitHub, they've got more than 200,000 stars in a very short period of time. So it's basically a self-improving AI agent built by this research lab called New Research, and it's a built-in learning loop. It creates its own skills from experience instead of you telling the AI like Claude Code to make skills. And then it also improves over time when you keep using it because it persistently stores knowledge in your local machine like your MacBook. But anyways, this is all the buzzwords. We're going to jump into this Hermes agent system design like usual. We're going to test it as well using their desktop app. Just give you a quick example. It's like a Claude Code, right? You can see that it was thinking and then it answered me in like a Pikachu style. It said, Pikapi, just hang out in my directory because it's literally a bot living in my local machine files. What we're building, fixing today, Pika Pika. And also you can interact with it on WhatsApp and then just say, good morning. It's a little bit slow. I'm using a Gemini 3.1 model for this. It took like a good 5 seconds. And now it's basically just using WhatsApp as the gateway to receive information from my WhatsApp account. So I can just text it and then ask it to do things for me and say, Pikapi, good morning. You probably realized that I've changed its personality a little bit and there are more interesting things I can show you. For those who have watched my previous agent harness, loop engineering, and memory system, you might realize that this chart is somewhat similar. This is what the previous chart looks like. And now if we look at harness for Hermes agent again, I added a bit more information, especially the difference between the Hermes harness versus a generic harness system. I marked the differences in red, but we're going to walk through this step by step. Also, I prepared some testing examples to cover harness, memory, skills, loop, gateway, and LLM Ops or eval, because a lot of people were asking me if I could implement some real examples. So here we are. Without further ado, let's jump right in. Okay, so firstly, let's look at the foundation of Hermes harness agent. It's a harness that runs on your local machine. You can use either local command lines, Docker, SSH, or a virtual VPS. There are two main ways to interact with Hermes agent. One is using your favorite communication apps. And in my case, I used WhatsApp, or you can just use their desktop app with the Hermes agent. So you can come to Hermes official website, hermes-agent.newresearch.com, and just click on download for Mac OS. Or you can click on Windows over here to use the command line to install it. Essentially, it's still a chatbot, just like Claude Code. And you ask the question to either the communication app or the desktop version. It's very similar to OpenClaw, where you can use WhatsApp to control it. So after users send the user prompt with the current chat history and the system prompt will be fed into a working memory. And then this LLM agent is basically the Hermes agent that will be answering your question. And it will be using a loop engineering over here to call up some tools that are only on Hermes. And eventually, after it finishes the task, it's going to end the loop and then send the user a reply. Just literally sending a question throughout this entire ephemeral agent run and then get the user reply. Just like my Hermes was greeting me like a Pikachu. And by the way, how did this happen? Right? I'll show you right now. So the system prompt for Hermes is interesting. It's called SOUL.MD. I really like how they name it. It says Soul. If you come to the right hand side, you can see there's a little file bar and this is your local files. And you can go find out there's a .hermes folder. And we open that. And if we scroll down, you will see there's a file called soul.md. We'll click on that. And you can edit this yourself, right? But since I've already edited it, after you edit anything, you can just click on save. I basically say you talk like Pikachu. Every reply starts and ends with Pika, Pika, Pika P. If you're excited, say Pika P with the lightning. If you're sad, say quiet Pika. I'm pretty sure you can do something similar in Claude Code for this. In Claude Code, something similar will be in customize, general, and you can see there's an instruction for Claude. You can tell Claude to do certain things and not to do certain things. It's basically the system prompt used across the entire agent harness. If you didn't watch my previous video on harness and loop engineering, harness is basically a set of tools that allows you to control over this really powerful horse, which is the LLM itself. In our case, the LLM we're using is Gemini because I've got the Google credits. I don't want to burn my Anthropic credits, but feel free to use the Anthropic. This is the agent of the horse. And the harness is this entire thing. So it's like a horse harness that you ride on and you make sure that the horse is not going anywhere random and it's using the tools accordingly to move in the right direction. Harness is a very vague concept. Just don't fantasize it. It's nothing complicated. It's just a buzzword. Then we're going to continue to build up this harness right here for Hermes. But what I'm going to show you is what a loop is. The concept of loop got really popular because these days people build a lot of agents. You don't want to always tell the agent what to do. You want the agent to figure out what kind of prompt it should send, what kind of tools it should call. Let's take a look at what tools Hermes agent actually have to enable this loop engineering. We're going to cover this briefly and then I'll show you real examples. So first of all, the agent of Hermes is having a set of tools that include the terminal, the browser, Okay, it can use your laptop's terminal, it can start a browser, it can delegate tasks, which means that it can spawn up some sub-agents for you. For example, you can ask it to spawn up an agent, which will call your Claude Code CLI to write code for you if the task is basically fixing some bugs on my GitHub. And then it can schedule a cron job. A cron job is basically, it can schedule something that will happen at a certain time. You don't need human intervention to do it. For cron job, let's just try right now. In Hermes agent, I can say, help me set up a cron job that will tell me a Pokemon joke every minute in the next 10 minutes. Okay, I'm just gonna send this. And also, I'm gonna send this to our Hermes agent WhatsApp interface too. And instead, I'll just say, tell me a developer joke every. It just quickly called this a cron job, and it says it repeats 10 times for the next 10 minutes. Because it says it's hanging in the terminal UI, it won't be able to print it, so I need to ask it. I just ask like, what's the first joke? And you can see on WhatsApp, it also got scheduled. The cron, it says the joke machine is powered and scheduled. I've set up a cron job to send you a fresh joke every minute in the next 10 minutes. You should receive the first one in about a minute. We'll see about that. Okay. Why did the Squirtle across the ocean to get the other tide? Pika pika. Okay, so that was cron job. It can do skill management as well. It can connect to MCPs as well. It depends on the question that the user asks. The agent will just leverage these tools until it's done, and then it will send a reply to you. Okay, the example we just saw was cron job. I'm going to show you some more examples later too. Let's test a few harness and loop examples. The first one is use a terminal tool to find out what OS version I'm on and read the last 10 lines of my shell history. Let's do that. Let's start a new session. I'm just gonna ask this exact question to it. So you can see it ran this on my local machine, and then it figured out that I'm on Mac OS 26.5. And the last 10 lines I used in shell history is basically text, get status, get status, get status. I always like to check get status. And here what happened was that it ran through this agent run, and then it called the terminal to do the task for me, which is checking what system I'm on. This is a very simple example, but you can do more crazy things. You can ask it to use the local machine terminal to do things for you. If you're using Claude Code, you're very familiar with this already, all right? There's nothing special about it. I'm just showing you the example that this is a harness and there's a loop, because after I fetched it, it will stop and tell me and reply to me. Let's look at the cron job as well. You can see that it sent me 2 jokes already. Why do Java developers wear glasses? Because they don't see sharp. Pika pika, I would tell you a UDP joke, but I have absolutely no guarantee that you would get it. I'm not going to wait for acknowledgement anyways. Pika. Okay, this one I didn't get it. So one more example. Browse the YouTube channel, Sean's AI Stories. Title plus views, my last videos. Create new video titles for this current video I am filming. So here we're asking it to use the browser basically. Okay, you can see that it started doing the searching. All these things already exist on Claude Code. I'm just explaining it from a system design perspective and showing you examples, okay? And then also I will show you what's the difference between Hermes and Claude Code. So please bear with me. All right, so I need to run a Python script. So you can see it also use some clicking tools. Oh, there's an error. The website was wrong. Try this new one. It saved a little memory here, okay? It said user profile updated. This is something I'm gonna cover in a bit, but spoiler alert, Hermes agent will save agent memories by itself. It's basically in your local files too. If you come here within the Hermes folder, if you scroll down in memories, you can see there's a memory.md. If we double click on that, it's stored YouTube here, YouTube scraping quirk. So because it realized that it had a mistake, so it updated itself with the memory. This is a self-iterating process of this harness. Good, so it read my previous YouTube titles. It realized that I've got this video that's got 100,000 views. And since I'm filming a new video now, it gave me some new titles. So what happened here was the user, which is me, who asked the question through the desktop. And then it went through this agent run. And then this agent harness Gemini that I'm using was basically calling the browser right here to search up my YouTube channel. And then it came back and said, hey, I didn't find anything. So it basically stopped. There's an and loop guardrail. The guardrail stopped and said, I didn't find anything. So I realized that, okay, the previous URL was wrong. So I input it again. It called the browser again. And it also called the terminal to run some Python script because it needed to do some task. And eventually it came back with the answer. There's a mechanism that says, okay, end the loop, no more tool calls, and then send the answer. These are 2 quick examples of what a harness loop engineering is. You see, you're already using it every single day. It's nothing fancy. So don't get overwhelmed next time when you hear these terms. It's just a buzzword. So what happened just now was this memory.md that we saw regarding YouTube memory. Hermes agent, after or during the agent run, it's going to start to create its own skill.md and memory.md, depending on if it's feeding into the procedure memory or if it's feeding into the semantic memory. And we should add one more arrow here, basically. So essentially, the way that Hermes agent works is that it's storing its own skills and memories completely locally. Nothing stored on the cloud. It has its own self-improving loop. Every time when it realizes that something is a mistake that you should learn from, or it's a repeated task, it will start to summarize, okay, here's some new memories I should know for the future in order to serve this user well. It started to save these files into these two chunks of memory system. The first one is called procedure memory. It's basically how you act, how the horse agent should be acting. And it's usually saved in this directory called Hermes skills skill.md. Hermes skills and any of these, okay? Autonomous AI agent, Claude Code. There's a skill for how Hermes will use Claude Code here. So it will basically delegate any coding to Claude Code CLI, shows exactly how you should do it, like install Claude, run it, and do the authentication and all these kind of things. And then what we just saw earlier was memories. The memory.md is saving the semantic memory, which are some durable facts or things related to the user profile. So if the user has a habit or has some important facts or information you should remember, then it will be saved in the memory.md. And then what's interesting is that for Hermes, instead of doing the embeddings, it's actually just using plain text. Okay, it's using the Topk keyword instead of doing the embedding or the RAG system. It's very interesting because I'm not too sure why, but it's just doing text. So remember that we say the agent run is ephemeral. Now that with working memory to be fed into the agent for all the loop engineering, which includes procedure memory, semantic memory, and later we'll cover episodic memory, this will become a more complete memory system that will feed into the agent runs, which is making the harness more elegant. And the third pillar that we haven't covered is called episodic memory. It's basically the chat history or some dated events. It can be ragged or SQL'd into the working memory. After every agent run, the information will flow into the episodic memory. What's different in Hermes is that the data is not saved in the cloud. It's saved in this place called state.db. Again, let's come back here. On the right-hand side bar, if we again open Hermes folder, scroll down, you can see at the end there's a state.db. And I can click on preview anyway. This is basically a database that will include all those info in your chat history. But also over time, it will start to consolidate some of those chats using the Hermes auxiliary models, which are cheaper, non-important models, to do this summarization task so that it will distill some facts into what we call the semantic memory or the memory.md. So you can see this harness is running really in a self-improving autonomous situation, which is really cool. I know this chart is getting more complicated than usual, but I feel like this should be a complete summary for how the Hermes agent works. And let's go through a few more examples. Let's test out some of the stuff for memories. Save to memory, that my favorite testing framework is PyTest. So this is an explicit saving, right? It updated the memory file. So if we go to memory, you can see one more block, which is user's favorite testing framework is PyTest. That was an explicit ask from the gateway. The tool is basically, let's go update the memory over here. Search our past sessions. What was the very first thing I ever say to you? Now it's using the searching tool in the loop engineering iteration. Say the first thing I say is, what can you do, Hermes? And what makes you special? Let's double check that. That's right. And it failed because I couldn't log in at that time. So what happened was I asked the question through the interface. It went through the prompt, and in the working memory, because we asked that, so it queried the information from episodic memory, from state.db. It returned the memory into the agent. The agent was like, oh, okay, this is what you said. Let's try an example related to skills, which is procedural memory. So we're going to say, create a skill called video prep that captures how I format my video scripts, spoken English, define jargon inline, no M dashes, closes with you can build anything, you can learn anything. This is an explicit call to update the skills. It used the skill management tool. Remember, in the loop engineering, there's a tool called skill management, and this is what it did. And say, pikapi, I have successfully created a video prep skill. Let's find out about it. Again, Hermes, skills, media, video prep. Double click. It created this skill for me. It says no M dashes, spoken English, define jargon inline, catchphrase, you can build anything, you can learn anything. Good. So we can test the loop a little bit more. So we can say use delegate task to spawn two sub-agents. One is researching the LLM eval harness, another one researching VLM architecture. The agent was calling the tool called delegate task and successfully spawned two background agents. So you can see it's processing right now over here. They're working in parallel. Cool. Eventually return the results to me. So you can see that it spawned up some sub-agents to do tasks for me in parallel. We've already tried the cron job, and the next one is spawn sub-agent that uses Claude CLI. This is my favorite. So this is my favorite. Spawn a sub-agent that uses the Claude CLI in headless mode, basically using Claude to build a Python script, fetching the top 5 Hacker News stories to Markdown and verify it runs. Yep, it firstly delegated the task to Claude CLI. It's using the skill, you can see. Remember we read the skill here in Autonomous AI Agent Claude? You should be reading this skill. Is this helpful? Let me know if this is helpful. I mean, I was trying to show you more examples in the walkthrough so that it feels more concrete, because a lot of people were asking me for implementations from my previous videos, and I feel like Hermes is a really good example. Okay, it created this code for me and used the Claude. I created the fetch hackernews.py. I just say, show me the result after running the script. Yep, so these are the top 5 Hacker News stories on Hacker News. Let's come check, it's correct. Remember what happened was that we sent the question from the gateway, it went through the agent run, and the LLM basically called up the tool called delegate task. Delegated the task to sub-agent, and the sub-agent was running in Claude Code, and Claude Code wrote that script and sent it back. And then this agent ran the script again, and then we get the results. This was the hardness and the loop engineering in this entire thing. I don't think it self-triggered self-learning skills yet. It only triggered learning the memory. I'm just gonna ask it explicitly. Did you save any skills by yourself, or did you only save memory so far? Oh yeah, but we created that. That skill. You did not self-realize you need to save skill. You should proactively offer to save a skill after a difficult iterative task with 5 or more tool calls. So far, we haven't done anything difficult. So we can test the gateway. I can summarize what we worked on today. This cron job failed. It didn't tell me 10 jokes, it only told me 2. What were the rest of the jokes? Don't lie to me, because maybe you just created it. Anyways, Hermes team, if you're watching this, your cron job is not updating it unless I ask for the results. So maybe this is something that you guys can fix. All right, let's move on and summarize what we worked on today. Because in this current chat, it doesn't know the rest of the stuff here. So let's see if it's calling the actual, remember we say state.db, memory.md, and skills.md. Good, it actually knows, okay? It says jokes on demand, system check on the OS version, which is what we did. YouTube stats, yes, we did that. Hacker News. Okay, good. WhatsApp here is just a gateway as an interface. It's doing the same thing as the Hermes agent desktop. This is very cool. This is similar to OpenClaw, but still every time when I feel I can just have a personal assistant handy on my WhatsApp, this is really cool. And imagine if I host this on a virtual machine and it runs forever. I can just basically ask WhatsApp what's going on, and it's gonna reply to me. Oh, I completely forgot. You should set up WhatsApp by typing in Hermes WhatsApp and then just follow the instructions to set it up. It should be straightforward. Last but not least, where is eval? Right? Where is our LLM Ops? Remember in our original chart, we had this blue box on the right-hand side called LLM Ops. So unfortunately, on Hermes, based on my current research, I don't think it has an LLM Ops or an eval system. You probably need to build it yourself. But it does trace the run. There's a thing called trajectory, export, and logs. And it's basically just logging the whole thing. But there's no eval. If you watched our previous video, the eval is basically you can use tools like LineSmith, LineFuse, and all these things that can track the entire agent run and some events that happen, like tool calls. How many times did you call LLMs? Did you use some cheaper models to summarize things into your semantic memory? Unfortunately, Hermes doesn't do that. I'm curious why. Maybe because it's a local system, so you can just customize it yourself. It's under Hermes. You can click into logs. You can see all the logs here. You can see the errors. You can see the agent runs. Gateway logs too. Gateway is the entry point, which is WhatsApp or this desktop. I hope this was helpful. I think there's quite a huge amount of work that we covered today, which are exactly what Claude Code can already do, or OpenClaw can already do. I feel that what makes Hermes special, at least compared to Claude Code, is that it's self-updating all these things locally. And maybe this is good for privacy reasons, because I don't see why we should not save it on the cloud. Other than that, everything else should be very similar, right? It runs the loop every time when the agent needs to do some task, kind of call all these tools, and you can even schedule a cron job. And then the memories and the skills are getting auto updated into the procedure memory, semantic memory, and the state data will be saved into the episodic memory. So I would say this is a pretty standard harness for an agent implementation. Nothing too fancy, but I'm sure they did a ton of work. But I feel like this is a good example for how builders these days should be building products, because this is becoming a standard, right? Every AI agent tool should be self-improving and self-evolving, and depending on the user request, you can either keep it local, you can keep it on the cloud. That's up to you. I feel like the skill and memory accumulation is probably the most valuable thing in this, because the user kind of just over time get locked in and it remembers who I am, which is why like recently I don't switch to other AI anymore. I just use Claude Code. It has a semantic memory about who I am, my company information, Ultimanis, and what my style of building YouTube videos. But yeah, I think it's a cool framework. You guys should try it out. It's really fun. Cool. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, please leave down a comment. And if you enjoyed it, please give me a like and subscribe. Let me know what else you would like to watch. I will see you next time. Thanks.